The biased BBC have been forced to justify their reporting on net zero, especially ULEZ, because it's been extremely biased as usual, and they've been going around calling the anti-ULEZ protesters hard rights and conspiracy theorists and everything else. They're refusing to apologize. They're just making some amendments. We're going to go through what the BBC is up to, and we're going to talk about the BBC lobbying net zero supporters, their reaction on social media. But let's talk about this report that came out of the BBC, because this is about the anti-ULEZ protests, and you can see Alan Miller. We got in the photo. This is from yesterday in Trafalgar Square. Howard Cox, the mayoral candidate for Reform UK, and there's this guy with a hoodie on the right-hand side. I think his name is Mahyar Tousi. He was there as well. And the BBC have been reporting on these protests, calling all of us conspiracy theorists and far right and everything else, and deniers. They had to do some sort of investigation, right? A couple of days ago, they reported this, saying on the 15th of April, there was a report on BBC News, BBC London, about ULEZ protests, and we received 44 complaints about a brief report, and saying that we said that there's a presence of conspiracy theorists and far right groups during this protests, and so we decided to investigate what we reported. I love it when the BBC investigated BBC. It always goes so well, right? Now, the report commentary was as follows. This is what the BBC said at the time. Campaigners against the ultra-low emission zone held a protest in central London today. Local protesters and mainstream politicians were joined by conspiracy theorists and far-right groups. It follows the news a judicial review is to be held into plans to expand ULEZ to all of London's boroughs in August. The mayor's office say expansion plans will continue. Right. And then it says the number of complainants said that it was inaccurate to say conspiracy theorists and far-right groups were present. First, groups. Now, individuals, if you say, you go anywhere right now in the world, and on a busy high street, there will always be individuals who will have far left views, they have far right views, some like avocados, some hate avocados. There are people with personal opinions. Group means there are established organizations with flags and everything. That didn't exist. So, in relation to conspiracy theorists, the evidence included people attending with banners and placards referring to stop world control. Hang on. So if you're against world control and the world government, you're a conspiracy theorist. This is what the UN actually said. This is what World Economic Forum has been saying. Elon Musk attended one of these events and said, please stop this world government nonsense. This is not a theory. It's actually been mentioned. Anyway, people with banners warning of the dangers of the UN's Agenda 2030. Well, that's what they said. Oh. And the World Economic Forum, yep. And then footage of Piers Corbyn addressing demonstrators. Piers Corbyn is far right. Piers Corbyn is far left. The guy's a communist. Now, he's not as bad as his brother when it comes to communism, but he's not a capitalist. He doesn't believe in free market. He does not believe in conservative values, Piers Corbyn. He's also against the world governments. He's also against the government tyranny, but from the left side, not from the right side. Just how stupid do you have to be at the BBC to get a job? Anyway, so this long report, there's mentioned, there's a lot of words, but at the end, this is basically their non-apology, saying that when it comes to the accusation of basically people being socialists, national socialists, and symbolism and slogans directed against the mayor, we accepted that it was consistent with tactics used predominantly by far-right groups, right? But, there's a but, we saw no grounds for concluding that they were used exclusively by such groups. It's literally one tiny half a sentence in the middle of all that report that they are basically admitting, oh yeah, well, we didn't really have any evidence. They buried the bad news in the middle of that document, saying just like half a sentence, but we have no evidence. Anyway, everybody is hard right. Classic, right? Now, harm and offence. Some complainants said it was offensive to the majority of those who attended the demonstration to associate them with conspiracy theories, blah, blah, blah. And some who had attended the demonstration said it was offensive to them personally. As set out above, the report began by referring to campaigners against ULEZ and then referred to local protesters and mainstream politicians. What? It's just like the BBC keep digging and digging and digging. It's absolutely embarrassing. Anyway, Alan Miller, who is the director of the Together Association Together Declaration, said, well, you can't just call the public names if you disagree with them. And he's right. He said it was a scurrilous, outrageous smear by the BBC, and the fact that it took so many people having to challenge it and write into them, and now they've only grudgingly accepted that it was not the case, is a reflection of the problem that everyone has got with the BBC. This should be clear to people that you can't just call the public names without any foundation. It's utterly outrageous and lacks any journalistic principles, particularly from a so-called broadcaster with balance. Well, that's a good point, because the BBC don't claim to be an independent private media outlet with their own opinions. They claim to be the god of morality and impartiality. This is the problem. People don't have a problem with bias if you're honest about it. If you're honest about your leanings, like this channel, people have a problem with dishonesty. You're hiding your biases and claiming to be the judge and jury. So that's where we are, right? And then yesterday, obviously, there was this massive protest again in central London. Despite the rain and train problems and everything else, a lot of people came to London to protest alongside us. I was there with, as I said, with Howard Cox, also Susan Hall, the Conservative mayoral candidate. Alan Miller organised the whole thing as well with other groups. Let's go to the clip.
We have ourselves come on. We got all the people. We're going to stop ULEZ together. It's only just begun. We get the judicial review. It's going to be the people. We say no together. What are we going to do? No together. And the weather doesn't stop us. Rain, shine, whatever. We're out here. We're making our voice heard. Yeah.
As you can see, we were extremely organised. Complete chaos. Everyone just saying their own stuff. But it was great. As I said, we had Susan Holt, the Tory mayoral candidate. We had Howard Cox, the Reform UK candidate. And there was an interesting moment where we were trying to take a group photo. Everybody joined. Alan Miller, Howard Cox, me. And then we even got Susan Hall to come and stand with us. And someone from Tory Central Office ran and dragged her away, saying, you can't be in this photo. You can't be seen with these guys, not with Howard Cox, no, not with my twos. This is so political tribalism. It's so nonsensical. What do they think? People in London who are going to be voting next year, they're going to look at the picture saying, well, I was going to vote for Susan Hall, but she's standing next to Howard Cox, her opponent. So I'm not going to vote for her. I'm going to vote for Howard Cox instead. It just makes absolutely no sense. This is just amateur politics. And it continues in our country. Poor Susan. She would have taken a nice photo, but she's not allowed to. She's completely controlled by the Tory machine. Anyway, let's get Twitter, because there were some reactions to our protest yesterday. We had this David guy with the EU flag emoji saying, not really a big gathering. Did they all come in the same black cab? I mean, I love how there's a subtle tone when it comes to insulting black cabs. There was a reason he mentioned black cabs. He didn't say train, he didn't say bus, he didn't say Uber, he said black cabs, because they hate the working classes. They hate anybody who's, for example, a taxi driver, a black cab driver. But that's one opinion. And then we have this one saying, this is not a parody. People actually campaigning for filthy air, water, and unlivable city. They must be really thick or hate Londoners. I mean, I'm blaming the education system. That there are stupid people like that, thinking if you oppose a certain policy, that means you have to be Puritan on the other side. Again, it's a classic left-wing tactic, saying, I'm left-wing, I believe in compassion. If you're not left-wing, that means you're not pro-compassion. What? That just makes no sense. Campaigning against a policy doesn't mean you want filthy air. Where are we? This one is brilliant. All right, Yar Shahar, I don't know how to pronounce the name, saying, they hate more than just Londoners. And there's a picture of St. George's flags. I mean, what? This is classic Emily Thornberry style politics as well. Yara Shahar, whatever his name was, or her name was, I don't know. They are the ones who hate our country. If you're attacking the flag, you're the one with the problem, not us. You live in a country with a flag, we can fly the flag. Free country, right? But no. This one said, Kevin, I bet none of them can tie their own shoelaces. That's extremely intellectual as an argument. Thank you very much. I have no idea what that meant. So as in like what the point of that tweet was. This is good. You're a noisy and very small minority. You are, however, raising the awareness of the benefits of having a ULEZ, so hopefully we'll be having lots more of them in more cities soon. How out of touch do you have to be to think that the more we campaign, the more ULEZ we're going to have? The pressure we put everybody on, from the government, Rishi Sunak, the opposition party, Keir Starmer's Labour, and everybody, they're all making U-turns. The whole narrative is changing. Do you think the more we do it, we're going to have more ULEZ? No. We're going to have much, much less because we keep putting pressure. We are slowly winning tiny victories, tiny battles. So we have to celebrate that. But again, the left continue to lose at the ballot box because of this. Mark says, oh, look, pollution deniers. Lazy, absolutely lazy. And my favorite, last one is my favorite. Ready? Mahyar, the deranged grifting outlier, will jump on any bandwagon with a camera. Well, that's true. That's just true. Yeah, true story. I agree. I love a good camera. I'm a camera whore. Oh, team grifters. Yeah, absolutely disgusting. Anyway, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. The fight continues against Net Zero, ULEZ, and Sadiq Khan. We are not going to stop on this channel. We're going to continue to push and be the voice of ordinary people up and down this country. We have so much to tell you guys throughout the day with other news stories as well. And don't forget, 6 p.m. shortly after this, we're going to have the second episode of our new farming series, The Death of British Farming. I believe this episode we're going to go to near Salisbury, a small village near Salisbury. And we're going to be talking about the issues around net zero and government control and everything else. Let me know what you think. I'm Mahyar Tousi, and we are the media.